This is Claudette, host of A Matter of Interpretation. Today I want to give praise and honor to God as we get started today. Our subject is the faces of immigration. We've had the legal advisor on, and now we're going to talk to Adonis Flores, who is a immigration rep. And we're also going to talk to Mayra Quintero, whose husband is in the process of deportation. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we may have a little barrier with the language, but we're going to do the best we can, and Adonis is here to help us. Adonis, let's go ahead and start off with exactly what you do, and both of them are DECA recipients. Okay, go ahead.
So yes, so I am the immigrant rights organizer for Michigan United, and my job is to make sure that the people that are victims that are oppressed by the current immigration system speak up and fight for their rights, so that we don't end up having permanent underclass that gets oppressed in our country. And ultimately that means that we have to advocate for laws that protect immigrants, or that at least attempt to bring some rights to immigrants that otherwise immigrants wouldn't have in the country.
What is your current status?
So currently I am a DACA recipient, which means that when President Obama back in 2012 issued an executive action that allowed students that are undocumented, that came with no status when they were children, to stay in the country, get a work permit, a social security number, and a driver's license. And thanks to that, I am currently doing the work that I do to make sure that more immigrants like myself and like Mireya and more immigrant families are able to change our current situation here in the country.
Okay, and I asked this on the last show, but some people are not watching or have not seen the last show. So tell me pretty much the process. How does an individual come to you, and how do you help them individually?
Yes, we do a lot of outreach in the community, at the churches and other institutions, but a lot of times we get people calling us with emergencies, families where a member of the family, usually the father, is detained by immigration, usually for something very simple like driving with a broken taillight, or not using their turn signal, having a crack in the windshield, very simple minor traffic infractions, which end up disclosing to law enforcement their legal status when they get pulled over, and that begins a process of deportation, which begins to separate the family. And usually we get a call from one of the family members that is telling us that they're trying to stop the deportation of the husband, and they reach out to us for help to see what they can do. We connect them with legal resources so they can try to find a legal remedy, but a lot of times it's just a matter of immigration using their discretion, which they are allowed to do, and saying this person is not a threat to our country, we don't need to seek their deportation, and it's better for them to stay with their family, to keep them together, to make sure that they won't cause any further damage to the community.
Okay, so that can be done.
That can be done, but it is very difficult, and immigration customs enforcement, or ICE, uses it very seldomly when they're supposed to use it more often.
Okay, so is there an appeal process? Because that seems very discretionary. You go in and something happens, and
so this is usually when there is no legal remedy, but the deportation would cause a bigger harm to the community and to the family. And usually the family means somebody in there is an American citizen, whether it's a child or a spouse, or sometimes a parent. What would happen is they would have to submit an application with their attorney to ICE asking for the use of this discretion. And ICE would definitely have to weigh in the benefits and of allowing the person to stay. So they usually only do it for people that have no criminal record and that can prove that being deported is going to cause great harm to an American citizen. But even there's been a lot of cases lately, especially in the Detroit area, where even in clear-cut cases where deporting somebody hurts an American citizen and hurts the community, and the person has a clean record, where it doesn't get used. So there's a lot of work to get done.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because you were undocumented, came to this country at the age of 8. What method did you come into the country?
Yes. I remember when I was a little kid, we crossed the border through the Arizona desert. We were very lucky to survive. It's a very dangerous journey. A lot of immigrants die. There's actually on the border, on the Mexican side, crosses, white crosses that people put to remind everybody of the deaths. And there's so many crosses along the border. And we were very lucky, very fortunate, but we came because we had attempted to get a visa and it got denied, and we had no other alternative. I remember with my family we went to the U.S. consulate to apply for the visa and it got denied, and at that point my mother, who has her family here, my grandmother's an American citizen, and he has siblings that are American citizens, could not get sponsored by any of them to come here legally simply because she's already a married woman, an adult. She didn't qualify as an immediate relative anymore. And she needed help from the family. So the only way at this point, the only way she could get the help was if she crossed with no documents. She made the decision. I don't blame her. I know it was a very difficult decision, but it made the change in our life. And today we're here because of that decision. And we know that that doesn't make her a bad person, and that doesn't make other immigrants like her a bad person. It simply means that they had no other option, and that was the last option that they had to available for them.
But you know how I like to look at it? I like to look at it that God had a plan for your life. And in order for that plan to be implemented, your mom had to take that risk. And she's looking at white crosses, she's looking at the dangers, but she chose to come over to give you a better life. And now you're working to help other people. So
Yes.
if I were a parent and I were faced with that kind of situation and I needed help, I don't know, but I know that if I prayed and God gave me the guidance and the strength to walk through those crosses and to come over, I probably would do the same. Because what parent would not try to give their child the best life that they can? And hopefully within all of this we'll get immigration reform so that there can be a plan of action for citizenship, because I think that's the only thing. Nobody wants anything handed to them, because when you come to the United States, you're working at odd jobs, you're doing things, but you know, by the grace of God, she came over and you're safe, and now you're doing what you were meant to do. So please don't ever think that we think your mom is a bad person. I just think she's a parent who cared about her kids. Mayor, I know that right now your husband is in the process of deportation. I think what he said originally was deportation, retention. Tell us a little bit, and I know that you are also a DACA recipient, and congratulations on that. And I'm glad you're here. Can you go ahead and tell me a little bit about your situation?
Well, my husband is in detention right now. He's for 5 months already. His name is Ever Cornejo. And we have 2 daughters, one 3 years old and the other one is 2 months. He got caught in April 9th, but he has the deportation process like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years, I'm not sure, from 2010, 5 years. And that time he was only my boyfriend. He come to my house just to meet my parents. I was a little bit nervous about it, so I told him just to go around somewhere a little bit before, and he said okay. We went to Belly Island, and after maybe 2 minutes, the 2 patrol agents, border patrol agents, came to the car and knocked the window, and after that they take us to the immigration office, both. And is when the immigration process started for my husband, the deportation. Now he is in detention, and that hurts a lot.
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine the weight, and the children. I'm sure they miss their dad.
Of course. My daughter, that she is 3 years old, after that happened, every time that she sees me to go somewhere and she can come with me, she always cries because she don't want me to go, and she asks if I can come back like her daddy or not. So she was afraid, and she is afraid. And so many times that she asking me why her daddy is in that place.
And how does that basically work? Do you stay in retention until actual deportation, or is there legal things that are going on while he's waiting?
So there has been an application. The attorney submitted an application for a stay of removal or for the use of prosecutorial discretion, and he got denied. And it can be, another one can be submitted if the situation changes. However, with his case, he's actually seeking for asylum because he came running away from gang violence in El Salvador. So right now it's going through the process of the appeals process in the immigration court, but he is still in detention, and the only reason why they have him in detention is because he didn't receive a letter asking him to report to an appointment with ICE, with Immigration Customs Enforcement, and that triggered his deportation. They came to his house looking for him to make sure he wasn't fleeing, which of course he wasn't. They just sent the letter to the wrong address. But nevertheless, because of that situation, now he's considered a flight risk, so he has to stay in detention until his the appeals process at the immigration court decides, makes a final decision on the asylum application. And they can use their discretion here, but they haven't been using discretion as much as they could. There's over 1,100 deportations a day, and statistics from 2013 show that As many as 80% of those deportations were people with no criminal record, maybe a small traffic infraction. And almost 20% of them had a minor criminal record that was nonviolent. And it was very, very small percentage of people that actually had serious records with the trafficking of drugs or DUIs or anything that could have put somebody's life at risk. Less than 4%.
Okay, so you two were living together. This is your husband, and was he working?
Yes.
Okay, so he was gainfully employed, was taking care of the family. Are you working?
Not right now.
Okay, taking care of the kids, that's work. That's a hard work, right, to be a parent. And then to have the stress of not having your husband with you. So that doubles that job because you've got to comfort your children and maintain the household. So he's the only source of income. And so that's why you're asking for discretion.
Yes, and because he has a clean record, there's nothing in his record that shows that he's a bad person. He's a loving father, and he's the main income provider. You know, he pays his taxes when he's at work. It's sad to see the criminalization of families, so many families.
So, because I'm asking this because now he's seeking asylum from gang violence, and I understand that. Was that, and he's been here how many years?
13. Okay. 13 years. So.
And so, when he originally came in, I'm assuming that he did not seek asylum at that time.
Yeah, the most common problem with immigrants that are running away from a major problem like gang violence is that their priority at that point in time is saving their life. It's not learning what the law is and how to do it. So a lot of times immigrants don't know that they may qualify for some kind of relief or some kind of immigration status.
Right.
At that point, they're just trying to save their life. And in his case, he found out that maybe he could qualify for asylum as a result of the traffic stop that happened in 2010 at Belle Isle, where it's very unfortunate the way that our current immigration system is working. You know, in their case, got pulled over 3 minutes after they arrived there, you know, meaning they were probably racially profiling them. They didn't get an actual fine for anything, which is sad, but it's very difficult to prove it, you know, but we know that it's happening a lot.
Right, because we know that racial profiling happens. Mm-hmm. When is it in the system? I guess that's what I'm thinking, or I'm asking, I'm querying. When you get stopped for, say, a broken tail light or whatever, and you give over your driver's license, mm-hmm. And then it pulls up illegal? So how does that work?
There's a couple of different layers of things that happen. First of all, different police departments have different ordinances, different cities. For example, the city of Detroit and Ann Arbor, they have an ordinance that prohibits local police from asking for legal status. But that's not the case in the rest of the state. The rest of the state, the police can ask for legal status of a driver. The driver's license doesn't say whether the person is undocumented or not, but there is another law called the Real ID Act, which was passed in 2007, which prohibits people from getting driver's licenses if they don't have a social security number. So when somebody is undocumented, and let's say they had a status and then they lost the status, they don't have a valid work permit anymore, they cannot renew their driver's license, so therefore their driver's license gets expired. Here in Michigan, and even in my case, a lot of immigrants were able to apply for driver's licenses before 2007 because there was no social security number requirement. So a lot of immigrants that have been here for many years, for more than 10 years, they have driver's licenses that were expired, and now that comes up when they get pulled over. They show driver's license expired. And that's one way that flags police or law enforcement that this person may be undocumented. And then from there, the rest follows. Usually, a lot of times, especially in cities where there's ordinances like in Detroit, they'll give them a fine and they'll let them go. They'll pay their fine for driving with an expired license and running at stoplight or whatever it is that they did. But in most cases, a lot of our surrounding suburbs and other parts in the state, we get a lot of calls from people that got pulled over for a normal traffic infraction, and but the police turned them over to ICE. And then the relative safety that the people have here in the city is at risk now. There is a proposal in the state legislature and in Congress to outlaw ordinances that prohibit the police from asking for legal status.
Okay, so if I got, say, if I got stopped, okay, if this new law were to pass, then they could ask me for legal status. Now normally they would assume, but I have daughters that are part Sudanese and their last name is Aishagi, which most people don't equate that to French Sudanese, but they could ask them that based on if they were here.
Yeah.
If that passed.
Yeah, so they would be free to ask.
Right.
There would be no there would be really no protection from these immigrants, who didn't do anything wrong. Maybe they were driving 2 miles over the speed limit. They deserve a ticket, but it shouldn't really separate the family, and more than anything hurt the kids. That is like a terrible burden for something as simple as a traffic infraction.
Now you know that some people, and so let's be frank, because this show is all about frankness and transparency, are going to say, well, they should not have been here anyway, and so this is just a way to stop it. We have to look at the other side of what people are going to say, because if we don't talk about it, then we can't move on it. We can't change that unless we can get, that's why I want people to tell their story, so that we can see that your husband was just working and taking care of his family, and now he's being deported. And what is your current status? I know are you going to school?
So I am a student at Wayne State University, College of Business Administration, and at the same time I'm working with Michigan United. But to answer your question about the other side, the truth of the matter is that immigration is not a right or wrong issue. It's not black or white. There's a lot of gray, a lot of shades of gray, and the truth of the matter is that most families are not either American or immigrant. Most immigrant families have members with all kinds of status. Somebody in the family may be an American citizen. Somebody may be a legal permanent resident. Somebody might be undocumented. Somebody might have a work permit, a DACA work permit, or other form of status. And that is why it's so important that we recognize that there's an actual human toll, and that immigrants are being punished so severely, even though immigration is actually civil law, and they're being punished like worse than serious criminals.
Okay. I want to give you time to tell us how we can help Mayor. We've got to wrap up this session, but if you can give the information of people that are wanting to assist, or give assistance in any way, you can go ahead and give that information.
So we're asking viewers to call the ICE office and ask for the use of prosecutorial discretion. Field Director Rebecca Ducci, she can use prosecutorial discretion.
Okay, and can you give her husband's name again? Go ahead.
Ever Cornejo Herrera.
Okay, so if you want to help, you need to start ringing that phone. And what's the phone number?
I have to look it up. It's 313. You might not have time to do it in the air. You can look it up at dhs.gov, and it is under Detroit Field ICE office.
Okay. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate your honesty, and thank you so much for coming. And you've just been a godsend to me with this series. And we're going to continue to talk about the faces of immigration. And again, we're getting ready to sign off, but it is my efforts plus God's grace. Have a wonderful day.